this is what I want to talk about. I mean, look, did Holly know? Did Holly know about the playtime round at Phillip Schofield's allegedly on a Thursday? I mean, if she did know about playtime on a Thursday, does she not have to go?
I have to feel the need here to step in to defend Holly, because not all the facts are clear at the moment. We're not 100% sure what she was privy to. We know already that Phillip Schofield lying to lawyers, to certain newspapers. So we know that he has a habit of hiding and concealing the truth. Whether or not he hid that from Holly, we still don't really know. Maybe she was privy to some information. And we also don't know what steps Holly took herself. Was she compliant? Did she enable it? Or did she actually go to her bosses and make a complaint herself? We don't actually know any of the facts. So I don't think it's fair at this point in time to point aim at Holly, when really what we should be looking at is Phillip's behaviour, and whether, you know, Phillip is the person that he's left the show, but who else was responsible for facilitating this? Because really, there were a lot of people who sound like they knew but didn't have the capabilities or, you know, the job security to actually speak out. You have to remember, this is TV. A lot of people work on short contracts and are freelancers. So were people always able to speak out? And Holly herself as well was probably trying to protect her job. Perhaps she was trying to be a good friend. She didn't know many of the facts. So I think at the moment, it does seem quite unfair to target Holly and sort of almost attack Holly for something that we're not really sure about right now, when the main culprit of the behaviour that's, you know, all these accusations are coming in is Mr.
Do you honestly
Schofield
think,
himself.
though, just seriously, if Holly Willoughby didn't know about it, from what we can gather, she's one of the only people in that building who didn't know about it, and some elements of her job involve interviewing government ministers and potentially even a prime minister, and surely she's not capable of doing that if she can't see what's going on under her nose?
Well, I take your point on that, and sort of the responsibility that Holly and Phil have on that show is actually a massive, massive responsibility to people to communicate, particularly in the pandemic, to be communicating vital information to people and to be holding politicians to account as well. But really, I think one of the questions in this situation, and I'm not here to sort of sway one way or the other, but really, does someone's behaviour off screen, if it's legal, does it affect what a broadcaster they are? And it's lots of things, because it's not like Partygate. It's not Boris Johnson who was, you know, making the rest of us stay at home and not hug or see our families while going to have a party. Phillip Schofield is just a TV presenter. And if he's having an ill-advised affair that we're aware of at the moment, we don't know what other facts are going to come out and what other reports are going to surface. But does that affect him as a broadcaster? And does it affect as a broadcaster? And if that's the case, really, is it sort of, should we be the jury on that, on Holly's career?
OK, I understand your point. I think there are certain aspects of this that may well be more troubling than anything that Boris Johnson has ever done, as far as I can gather, but we'll have to wait and see how time unfolds there. Let's move it on further up the chain, really. I mean, there must be a lot of very nervous people higher up the chain at ITV now looking at this, thinking, have we covered ourselves in glory here? I mean, from what Eamon Holmes was saying, this chap was getting a taxi paid for by ITV from Phillip Schofield's house to the studios. The word that keeps coming up about this individual was troubled. I mean, at the very least, there appears to be a rampant abuse of power and some form of cover-up going on here in a way that could well be deeply mentally damaging to a vulnerable individual. I mean, that's catastrophic.
That's terrifying, and that's something that at the moment that we're not clear of all the specific facts. So it's not really something I think at the moment we can debate with, you know, a huge deal of authority. We know there's reports, we know there's been rumours. This is something journalists have known about for a long time. There's, you know, it's been going on years, and it's just stuff we haven't been able to report on. But really, when you're talking just then about an abuse of power, that's another very key part of this, because Phillip is a much more senior person in a very powerful position, and what's got to come into question here is, did he abuse that position? Because that is something that is immoral, and that's not someone we want on our TV screens delivering vital, important information to us. So the abuse of power is what's really interesting, because there's some conversations as well about, fears higher up that there could potentially be sort of some homophobia around it, if, you know, with Phillip's relationship, because, you know, at the time of that relationship, he hadn't actually come out as gay. And if you just think about in the Me Too era, if you flip the dynamic and you think, if this was an older guy, you know, in his 50s, and it was a maybe younger, impressionable female at 18, I think we'd be having a slightly different conversation. It feels that there's so many threads to this story right now, where people aren't sure which way they should they should go, because if Philip and this individual had gone to have a 20-year-long relationship and Philip was out as a gay man, it would feel less sort of clandestine and less sort of uncomfortable.
I'd be
wouldn't
inclined
it?
to agree with you had, in my view, Phillip Schofield not used his coming out as a mask for a massive controversy. And do you know the person who I feel most sorry for in all of this, and I did at the time and I do now, is his wife and his children.
Okay.
Because this is absolutely staggering, and you know she's, from what I can gather, maintained a dignified silence. Look, Rebecca, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Rebecca Twomey there, showbiz journalist.